Philippe Leclerc. He joins us from Ankara. He is the representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Turkey. Thanks so much for being with us. Philippe, as we look back, on 10 years, we know some of the images that will stand out the most are just those masses of refugees trying to leave Syria, some trying to go to Europe or anywhere that they can get to for safety. As you look back now, what could foreign countries and the international community, what did they get right and what did they get wrong in dealing with that crisis in particular?
Well, war is still going on. Peace has not been settled. So this is the thing which went wrong and continues to go wrong, as the Secretary General of the United Nations has said. The most important is to make sure that peace comes. And we are still far away from peace in all parts of Syria. So the displacement continues, both within the country, with almost 7 million internally displaced persons, and 5 million people outside who are refugees. As you said, some went to Europe, but most of them went to the neighboring countries, where Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, and even Iraq, as well further in Egypt, most of the Syrian refugees are there. And after 10 years, what is the most important in view of this peace to find is to support these 5 million people in the neighboring countries and not to let these countries alone. And what we are asking for is better responsibility sharing between the rest of the world, the international community as it is spelled out, and Turkey and the neighboring countries. Because the time is not yet ripe for a massive voluntary return, as you have described the situation. Right now, we need the efforts to continue for the youth to be educated so that at one stage they can rebuild their country, both materially, but also psychologically, spiritually. And for that, we need time, but we need energy and peace to come. This is the priority, is peace to come.
Right. I'm not trying to ask you to look back on too much, but I think the point of reflecting now is what lessons we've learned. Because the refugee crisis, although we're not seeing the desperation necessarily that we saw back in 2015, there are still people trying to get to safety, whether in neighboring countries and in Europe, which was woefully underprepared for the surge that it saw. And many say it turned its back on humanity in the European response to the refugee crisis. So what lessons have at least been learned?
Well, I'm not sure sufficient lessons of what I call responsibility sharing have been learned by countries which are far away, or not that far away, but that are not neighboring Syria. And this is where we still need to ensure that more is done, far more is done to shoulder those who have been hosting the refugees. And this is where we need to make the effort. After 10 years, still working on peace, but making sure that those who are shouldering these refugees are assisted, far more than they have been. And this is through funding support. It is also through resettlement. There is a Brussels conference coming up at the end of this month, in the end of March. We need assistance in funding to these states, but we also need pathways, family reunification, and resettlement to other parts of the world than only the neighboring countries of Syria.
Okay, where you have seen, though, things done right, I want you to illustrate for me what some of the better examples were for camps that were erected responsibly and where the infrastructure was set up responsibly so that refugees would not have to suffer and entirely lose the lives and livelihoods that they had to leave behind in Syria.
Actually, the best example I can think of, as I am UNHCR representative in Turkey, only for 2 months, is actually not to have people staying in camps anymore, even though there are 3.6 million Syrians in Turkey. There are no more or almost no camps in Turkey, which means that all these Syrian refugees are staying in urban areas. Their children are going to school. Access to employment has been promoted. Health support is provided, not through separate programs, but including them in the national programs which are also benefiting Turkish citizens. This is the best way we ask states to treat refugees so that they have a sense of normalcy. But of course, COVID has also had some consequences on Turkey and many other states. And the first to suffer are often those who do not have the financial reserves, the access to employment, and the refugees are paying a hard price as well to the COVID consequences, even in countries like Turkey, who have done their foremost to include them in their national programs.
Right. As for the refugees that are now abroad in Turkey and elsewhere, do they want to go home? Are you finding that there is this want to return, and will they be able to do so in the foreseeable future?
Well, when you look at what is still happening in Syria, when you see the level of atrocities that many of the families have gone through, when you see that no child in Syria in 10 years has really been living a normal life, how would parents take back their children in a situation of such a crisis with no durable solution in sight? I think it's very important to feel that, and when we talk to refugees, this is what we hear. They dream of their country. They dream of being able to return. But right now, the situation is not yet conducive to safe return, or even economically, socially durable for return to take place. So we need to fight hard to create these conditions, and it will be their choice, their individual choice, to return or not. But our job, our energy, is to make these conditions happen so that they can make that choice.
Okay, Philippe Leclerc, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Greatly appreciate it.